Hello and welcome everybody to New Earth Consciousness. Tanya here, and I'm sitting with Shaun Grant, who is a spiritual teacher who specializes in helping people become their most authentic self. You can find him on Linktree, so that's linktr.ee/ Shaun Grant. The link will be in the description as well. There's so much that we're going to talk about today that I'm so really super excited about. Shaun, thank you so much for being here and taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I can already intuitively feel that this is going to be a fun conversation that we'll have
Yeah.
together. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and I just have to let the audience know that yeah, and I'm sure you guys will feel it in the conversation, but Shaun, you hold so much love and compassion and positivity. I just have to say that up front that it's inspiring. And I'm excited to get into your story because it definitely is a powerful one. And yeah, you and I have both been down the dark night of the soul path. And
Mhm.
but of course yours is unique and different. And yeah, why don't we start there? You had a profound spiritual awakening, and
Mm.
it kind of was a rock bottom place. And I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle when they hit rock bottom, and I feel like these stories are so important to give people hope because I know for myself, when I was at rock bottom, knowing that other people have hit rock bottom and have come out the other side really gives so much hope, more than one can imagine. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So this story is, it's personal. It's empowering. It's inspired me to want to give back in as many ways as possible, and it's also, as you mentioned, helped me to be as compassionate as I can with everyone and everything in the world. And so I'm really grateful that you're giving me the opportunity to sort of tell it.
Mhm.
And it dates back, back when um, I was in college. And so, when we're younger, we're looking to define ourselves. We're looking to figure out what our thing is. And some of us, are, I don't want to say lucky, but aligned at an early age to where we can find that. And some of us, we pick different directions and we go and try new things and all. And we're just trying to find what feels right and what feels most aligned. And that's where my story finds me at. So about 22 years ago, I was in college and I thought I had figured out my purpose. I wanted to be a professional football player, and I'd worked towards that dream for a very, very long time. And I couldn't imagine myself being anything else other than that. And then everything began to fall apart. And what I mean by that is I flunked out of school. I had injuries that I just couldn't recover from. And so I slowly felt myself sort of dropping into this dark, desolate place, um, emotionally, looking back on it spiritually as well now, and then also just having my mental health suffer. And so as I'm dropping into that place, I'm realizing I'm not able to come back. I can't get out of it. And it begins to just spiral. And so the injuries happened, then the whole school thing happened, and I had I got suspended from the university, so I had to go back home. And home just reminded me a lot of the things that I wanted to forget that I was trying to move away from. And so you take all of that stimuli, all that emotional stimuli, and it just creates an absolute, just insurmountable weight, like from a vibrational standpoint.
Mhm.
And it sunk me into depression. And I just, it was so heavy. And I think it was building for so long that it really put me into a state of being suicidal.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't shake it. And so like most people, I self-medicate. I drank and drank and drank and continued to do that. Things didn't really ever get better until I got to a place where I just thought to myself, I was like, there's no point in this. This is not changing, because at this point in time, a lot of time had surpassed and I was still stuck in the same position. And so I find myself one night just drinking repetitively, just going way over the limit and just sort of observing things. And I sort of remember that night being in slow motion because, interestingly enough, I was looking at everything I was going to miss, because that was the night that I was going to take my life. And I just kind of saw everything so clear for the first time at that point in time, but it was still from that perspective of deep sadness and deep depression. And so, I finished up, I think about 1:30 or so, and I was like, you know what? I'm ready to do this. And so I drove out, because I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. There's a lake that actually overlooks the city called Lake Pontchartrain. And I went out and I thought about everything in life. I thought about what I wasn't going to be able to do. Like, I wasn't going to be able to be a husband. I wasn't going to be able to have kids, wasn't going to be able to follow my dreams or accomplish my dreams. And it felt like I'd lost so much in that moment because I was in such a deep, dark place. And so this went on for a few minutes, and I took a deep breath and I decided, you know what, this is it, and what's so interesting looking back on that, I was completely unaware of the impact it would have had on my family, on my friends, on everybody around me. I just wasn't able to step into that awareness to find out. So took a breath, got into the car, and I turned it on, and I was ready to run my car off into the embankment, into the lake. And I took one last deep breath. I said, here it goes. And then my cell phone rang. And I believe it. And so I didn't mention this last time, but I ignored it the first time it happened.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
I was like, I don't want any part of it. Nobody's going to stop me from doing this. This is like, I'm ready to do this. I was committed. And that's something that I had at a young age. Whenever I was going to commit to something, I was committed, and there was nothing that was going to stop me. And so I declined the call. And so a few moments later, it rang again. And I'm just like, okay. And it turned out it was a friend of mine at the time who just, all I can think of is intuitively, she knew what I was going to do. And she just let me have it. Right? And in as many words, it was tough love, but it was also like, don't be so selfish. Understand how valuable you are to me, to everybody. Like, I know life is tough right now. And we're like 22, 23 years old. Like, for somebody that young to really sort of be evolved enough to sort of reel me back in and let me see a different perspective, it just changed everything. And so after she was done, the thing that I remember the most, even 20 something years later, is she said, you just got to keep battling back. You got to battle back. And I didn't understand what that meant. And I don't think it meant like fight against life, but understand that you're worthy because you exist. The fact that you came to this life means you are worthy, and you are here to give your light, to give your love, to allow God to express its truth through you as much as possible. That's why you're here. That's your defining purpose. And that night I saw a glimpse of that, because I'm like, wow, somebody cares enough about me to call me in my darkest hour and literally pull me off the ledge and say, no, you can figure this out. And so I wish I could say it got easier at that point in time, but it didn't. It actually got harder.
Wow.
But my foundation was stronger now. And I could understand, you know what? I think I came across a Bible passage or a quote. It's just, this too shall pass. and it spoke volumes to my spirit. I feel like it was the divine really sharing with me, like, okay, keep going, keep going. And it created such an enormous amount of compassion in me to know that if I could get through that, then I have to help people. I want, not have to, but I want to help people to figure out their life, especially in those dark times and dark nights of the soul.
Yeah. Yeah. That place where I'm curious about what your path was to coming back to a sense of wholeness, or I mean, it's, depression is so it's, when people say it's just mental, it's physiological as well.
Yes.
And it's like, I know my experience of it, you know, therapists would tell me, well, you just need to, cognitive behavioral therapy, you need to replace these thoughts with positive thoughts. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe at the time I just didn't have the belief that, well, certainly thinking the thoughts couldn't get me to that feeling good
Right.
place, right?
Right.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm curious what your journey was like. What did you do?
Yeah. So the biggest thing was really coming to terms with the trauma of the self-abandonment issues, and
Mm,
that affected me later on. But really dealing with that self-hatred, because and I said this all the time: suicide doesn't just happen when you commit the physical act.
mm,
You kill yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually over time until that builds into a physical manifestation.
mhm.
And so that is exactly what was happening. But to your point, it was something more somatic. It was something deeper in the body that I was carrying.
Mhm.
And so around that time, my spiritual life began to grow. I I got more positive because I knew it wasn't going to come. Looking back, it wasn't going to come like just right away.
Yeah.
So it really kind of started with, okay, the first thing I need to do is positive movement, positive ideas embedded into my system, like not just thoughts, but intentions that
Mm,
I can feel, intentions that change my composition, that help me to feel better. And that just kind of was sort of came through gratitude, like just being grateful for what I have right now, and all sometimes just getting back to the idea that, okay, I'm breathing. Like,
right.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That makes me satisfied, and it would change my entire composition. And at that point in time, gratitude became so sacred because it was something that wasn't difficult, but if I dedicated the time to,
Mhm.
it would just shift my entire perception of life and how life unfolded. And I would say that sort of led me into a more positive vibration. And I think once I reached a place where I wasn't necessarily super happy,
Yeah.
but when I was content and I was understanding that I was here for a deeper, stronger purpose, is when my spiritual life just sort of exploded, which is interesting. That time at the lake was a catalyst, but when I was sort of, I feel like God was waiting for me to be ready to accept and embody, but also to be, in the right frame of mind and frame of being to sort of go after this spiritual path at that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to me, or at least what I'm imagining, is that I think a lot of people get stuck in the how, right? They're in a dark place or an uncomfortable place, and sometimes it's hard to believe that being grateful is enough,
Mhm.
right? Like, What do you mean? Like, I just have to be grateful, and somehow this mess I find myself in is somehow going to work itself
Yeah.
out, right? Like the mind gets in there and creates the doubt,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, how could that possibly be enough? And I think it seems to me the antidote really is just is faith. Just
Yeah.
like, okay,
Absolutely.
gratitude, like I am grateful for this moment, grateful
Mhm.
for what's in my life right now.
Yeah.
And even though I don't know how it's all going to work out, I'm holding the faith. Like I know that
Yeah.
something greater is supporting me through all of this.
Absolutely. And you make a great point. It just, if you can take that moment to moment and just exist in those moments without anything else, right? Like, so easy to get caught up in what's not right. But if you can just stay in this moment and realize, first and foremost, I have breath. Secondly, I likely have shelter. Like, all these simple things, it really, I'm a firm believer in the idea there's no past, there's no future, there's only now. And I always find that whenever I remember that,
Yeah.
I'm at my happiest. But
Yeah.
as soon as I shoot off into the future or shoot off into the
Yeah.
past, here
Yeah.
comes the stress, right? The stress is just, I mean, just, you know, giving me a whipping. And I just, once I get into that moment, I'm there in that moment, everything, it's like the key, it just lights up
Yeah.
and it just gives you so much peace and so much clarity and awareness about, you know what, win the moment. And
Yeah.
I can win the moment by simply being still and breathing and being grateful. And
Yeah.
it just builds and builds and builds from there.
Yeah. That's so powerful. It really is. It's so true. It's so true. It's like obsessing with the future or the past. It's just creates all this worry and stress and really, I mean, the truth of it is like all of this is going to pass away anyway. Like really, like, you know, like this whole
Yeah.
move that we're in, one day is not going to be here or it'll change into something else. We go
Yeah.
someplace else. But as far as this life is concerned, yeah, yeah, the waiting or yeah,
It's
too
such a,
focused. Yeah.
yeah, you made such a valuable point because I think when you realize that, what you just said, how it's all going to pass away, how it's all so transient,
Yeah.
like it really makes you appreciate it so much more.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at your bookcase and I'm thinking to myself, like, it really, after what you just said, it makes me think about all the amazing books I've read and read a couple times, and I have the pleasure of having, and just something so simple, right? You don't think about it until all of a sudden, yeah, everything will change. Everything will evolve because that's what energy does. It just continues on its evolution. So it's like, what do we have to be happy about right now in this fleeting moment?
Yeah. Yeah. Now so you grew up in with a Christian background,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And you shared with me before the interview that there was a big part of yourself that you were maybe unknowingly suppressing. Um,
Yes.
and but it started to come out and kind of created maybe it was an identity crisis or I don't know how you would describe it, but
Yeah.
yeah, share with us that story.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. So I've always had a natural propensity for these energetic spiritual gifts, so to speak, and the gift of intuition, you know, empath. Like I go into a room and I find myself just sucking energy from the room, which is if it's it's great, the energy
Yeah.
is great, it's fantastic. If not, I'm just like, oh. So, but I knew as a child, and a lot of this was retrocognitively looking back and seeing things, from a higher consciousness, higher awareness. I look back and I realize those gifts were so prevalent and so adamant. And I remember as a child, I cried I was so sensitive. And being from a religious background and being around such strong authority figures who just didn't understand the idea of feeling into your emotions and releasing and loving and processing,
Yeah.
they looked at it as stop crying. What is wrong with you? But when I look back, I understood the crying was a reaction to the energy of the environment. And it would happen a tremendous amount.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank my mom, because my mom was the one person, she never was the type that would say, I'll give you something to cry about if you don't shut up. You know, like she was very strong, very forthright. But for me and my three brothers, she was never the type to, like, you know, just shut off our emotions. And so I didn't think anything of that. But then I just started to, like, have knowings. I started to, like, you know, just kind of intuitive divine downloads would come in. And I just couldn't figure out how I knew that. And it started to happen even more prevalently. And this was like, I would say maybe 7, 8, or 9, between those ages.
Mm-hmm.
And we were devout Catholics at the time. And I I heard somewhere or read somewhere that anything along these lines that I was feeling, like, I didn't know it was psychic at the time, but intuitively, when I heard that if you are this, if you are that, if you are a fortune teller, soothsayer, or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to hell. And it was like, oh crap. Okay.
Yeah, oh crap.
I was like, well, I don't want to go to hell, you know, burn up, you know, like, come on now. Like, what did I do? Like, why would God give me something that's going to put me in hell? And, you know, and so that began the journey of suppressing it and not having the courage to come forth. Now, what's interesting is, before I really suppressed it, these gifts were aching to sort of get out. They just started to happen and, like, sort of just manifest. And I was like, oh, no, you don't. No, you don't. And from that point on, like I said, about 8 or 9 years old, up until, you know, through adulthood, there were times where it would just show up. Like, I would just have a knowing, like, I know, literally, like, it's sitting in front of me. I know this. But I just didn't have the strength or the courage to embrace it. So fast forward to last year,
Mm-hmm.
suicide comes up, and I mean, it is like an avalanche, overflowing. The energy is so bad. I just don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't figure out what's happening. So I meditate, right? I can't do anything else. I'm like lying in the bed. I'm going to meditate and see what this is about. So first thing comes up, self-abandonment, right? So I was abandoned multiple times by my father, me and my family, and I interpreted it as sort of not being worthy because of his actions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a deep core emotional wound that I had. And then the next thing that came up was self-hatred. And so the abandonment I had an understanding about, but the self-hatred was like, well, why do I hate myself? I don't think I've ever done anything, you know, to the degree to make me experience this much self-hatred.
Yeah.
So I went deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And as I went deeper, like a drop in the bucket, it was like, you've denied the most authentic aspect of yourself. And I was like, what? I was like, I'm one of the most authentic people in the world. What are you talking about? I denied myself, spirit. I don't buy that.
Yeah.
And then like a just cartoon bubble in a cloud, it's like psychic. And I was like, oh crap. And I knew instantly at that moment, that's what I denied all of those years. I suppressed it. And I suppressed it because I didn't want to go to hell. And I kept that belief even when I got away from religion and Catholicism and Christianity. I suppressed it. And when you know, like we talked about,
mm-hmm.
when suicide comes up, you don't just kill yourself one time. You've killed yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually over time.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And that's why I came roaring forward with a vengeance. But when I finally understood that and I finally embraced it, it opened up so much energetically. It opened up so much more intuitively on a psychic level, like just understanding that I was given this gift to help others really allowed me to just be so different, still myself, be so different than what I was, because I wasn't denying the most authentic version of me. The most authentic aspect of me is what spirit related. And so it's amazing to think that, like, that long, right? I'm 44 now. It was over 30, 35 years. I put it in a box and just didn't allow it to come out.
How did you confront the fear? Because I feel like, when you say like, okay, we've abandoned ourselves over and over again,
Mhm.
I feel like it's on a much more subconscious level. Like it's not conscious. It's just a program that's running, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you're doing it. And then you get to this place where it's like you're backed into a corner and you're like, okay, what do I need to see?
Yeah.
And then you see it. So if you saw psychic
Yeah.
and you knew that seeing that was like, oh my gosh, that is going to blow everything apart,
Yeah. Yeah.
and how did you move past the fear? Because I feel like that's what people face, right? There's the fear. So
Mhm.
how do you overcome it? It's like, and I guess maybe it's part of your personality because you're just like you said, I commit, like, okay, I,
Yeah.
I just do it. Okay, this is
Yeah.
it. This is what I have to embrace. Okay, I'm just gonna do it. I'm not gonna, like, it seems like you kind of have to have a little bit of a, um, I don't know what, for lack of a better phrase, pulling the trigger. I mean, that's terrible
Yeah.
because we're talking about suicide,
No, I love
but
it. I love
it's like really, it's like, okay, there's no like, well, maybe I'll just tiptoe into it or I'll just
Right.
stick my toe in the water.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're either gonna say yes to this or you're going to stay stuck over here. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of gray area. You're either
Hmm.
going to really put yourself out there and be seen for who you really are, or you're going
Yeah.
to continue to hide, right?
Yeah. Hmm. That's a terrific uh, point of clarity, and it's a terrific question you asked, because I think that's so important to let people know how I got to that point.
Yeah.
So it started with fear. I could feel the fear just kind of coming up, and much out of character, what sort of masked that fear was anger. I got extraordinarily angry and I couldn't figure out why. And
Mm.
it was just weeks at a time. I was so angry and I couldn't figure it out until that fateful day where it was revealed to me about the whole self-hatred thing.
Mhm.
Because I'm not normally an angry person. Yes, I feel my anger,
Mhm.
because it's healthy, but I just wasn't that. And so in the past, if I understood, if I was that angry about something, that's some subconscious stuff that needs to really come to the surface and be processed, because it's affecting the way that I live my life. It's affecting how I perceive life.
Mhm.
And the great thing about anger is behind it is usually just some unrelenting passion, because for me, that's what
Yeah.
I needed to figure out why my entire vibrational composition as a person had changed. It was so baffling. But then once, meditation, thank God, I was able to see it from a higher awareness. I realized, okay, like, this can be kind of flipped into something that can help me. Like, there's a passion behind this. And I had so much passion about being angry, which tells me that something was being denied. Like if I was that angry, it means that I was being restricted in some way. And it was hard, but I just was patient with it.
Yeah.
And then eventually, at the divine time, perfect divine time, it was revealed. But I really think the anger sort of propelled me to really find the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. I love what you said about passion being
Mhm.
connected to anger.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely true. And there's um, passion. It sounds to me like mm, there's something bigger that has a hold of us,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Like it would be so much easier to be quote unquote normal, whatever that
Yeah.
means, you know?
Yeah.
But there's just something that has you that's not going to let go. And I think it's because your purpose, it's like, no, you've got a bigger purpose and it's
Hmm.
not going to let you go. Like, sorry, buddy. You know,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And
So,
here I am.
yeah.
I was just going to say, here I am teaching about authenticity at the time, which has been, my life over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And, I've got to practice what I preach. You're angry. That's the authenticity coming out. There's something that you're being inauthentic about, which is why you're angry. You got to deal with it. And so that really helped out a lot because I always pride myself on being able to be that and express that out to people because why not, right? Like
Yeah.
that's our greatest gift back to God is us being completely and authentically ourselves, not just normal or
Right.
what everybody else expects us to be.
Right. Yeah. Um, very good. I want to shift it over to your gifts, your psychic gifts. And you shared something with me I'd never heard of before, but this psychography.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah, tell us about that. That's the first time I've ever heard of that gift.
Yeah. So once these gifts came up flooding in, naturally I'm like, okay, how does it work? What do I do? And I can remember uh, my wife. I had I was doing something, and actually, no, it wasn't her. It was a friend of mine. A friend of mine had saw something I posted because I wanted to be as upfront and authentic about what I was going through. And somebody contacted me. It's like, well, could you do a reading? I was like, well, I maybe like I just kind of discovered this. I was like, maybe I can. And then intuitively, something said, okay, well, you know what? Send me your most recent picture and give me your date of birth. And so they did that. And I meditated and I stopped and I just focused on it. Just whatever comes up, we're allowed to come up. And all the stuff just started coming up. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write it down. And I wrote it down. And next thing I know, I had like a page and a half of sort of a reading. So I was like, okay, let me type it up.
Mm.
And I typed it up, sent it over, and she was just like, how did you know all that? Like I was like, I don't know. Like I just tapped in to the your consciousness because our body is just one aspect of it. Our consciousness is just it's God, it's everything, it's everywhere. So like you can tap in if you're willing to listen. And I just was listening to what was coming through from that person's essence, from that soul. And it was just coming down. And that was great because that showed me what could happen when I didn't get in the way of it. So I began to do readings exactly like that because I think that's the first stage of me before I get to, doing anything else. But I started doing that and it just started changing people's lives. And then I hit a bit of a wall because my ego would get in the way of being in a space where, okay, well, is that right? Did I say that properly?
Yes. Hmm.
Uh, maybe I erased that, and I started doing this, and my grandmother, who was a really big influence and huge guy, she passed away in '97.
Hmm.
She came through and she said, all you have to do is offer the gift. She's like, it's
Wow.
not your job
Wow.
to
That's
see
so
if it's
powerful.
right. Yeah. She's like, it's not your job to see if it's right. It's not your job to like question what comes through, even if it sounds wacky and silly and weird. She's like, honor the gift and then let it go. And I was like, you know what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. And I just did that. And it became a lot easier, less anxiety on my part, because some people, I would write them and then they just wouldn't write back.
Uh,
I think I maybe touched on something too personal,
yeah.
or the idea that Shaun could be in my head and I don't like that, like I'm
Yeah.
not in your head, I'm in your consciousness.
Yeah.
Uh, but, there were a number of individuals who were super ecstatic about it. And then they just didn't reply and didn't communicate. And we don't communicate to this day. And so it's kind of like, you know what? I understand that. I just gave the gift. They asked, I gave the gift. That's all I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some people, I mean, they're not ready
Yeah.
to hear it.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
you probably hit something spot on and they're like, oh, no, no, no. I was hoping I could dance around it. You could tell me
Yeah.
good news or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, that can be
Yeah.
really, really tough. So,
Yeah. You're not trying to like, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. No, no, no. Go ahead. You first.
Yeah. It's like you're not trying to pinpoint certain things. You're only accepting what is given. Like I can remember doing one reading and I just started sweating and I was like doing this to my head and I was like all over the place. And I was like, what in the world? And then when I finished the reading, I was like back to myself. So the person I was doing the reading for was completely inundated in anxiety
Mhm.
and just nervous excitement and all these things. And it was just so interesting how that could happen. But if I would have sort of not let that come through as I was doing what I was doing, it would have been inauthentic to the gift. So it's interesting when you decide to do something like that and you're just offer it. Now I say, you know what, I'm not going to tell you anything before. I'm just going to let whatever comes through, and that's it. And you decide what you do afterwards. That way, there's no like expectations or anything like that. It's just this is how it works. This is what I'm going to do. I'm
Mhm.
only honoring the gift.
Yeah. And so do people come to you with a specific question, or is it just, hey, I'm just open to receiving a reading?
Yeah. So in most cases, it's just a general reading, but then sometimes people will be like, "Well, I'm having trouble financially.
Mhm.
How do I kind of work through that, right?"
Mhm.
And then relationship wise, I remember one girl was, trying to figure out how she could sort of alleviate the problems. And what came through was she was just totally missing the trauma that her partner had gone through as
Mhm.
a child and how he suffered with abandonment issues. And so it
Mhm.
just sort of gave so much clarity and she could experience having more compassion with him because she understood, okay, don't look at him as the 50-year-old man, look at him as the 7-year-old child whose mom left and never came back, right?
Yeah.
It changes the entire perspective and feeling about things when you can see. I really feel like a lot of times we have to see adults that way because most adults are just little children emotionally
Yeah.
and mentally. It's kind of crazy to say, but I think, I won't say most, but there's a lot of adults that have not processed childhood trauma. And so they act on those same programs. And so if we can see them as that little person still trying to figure things out, it creates so much more compassion for us as we relate to them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing the impact of childhood trauma and how long it can last. And it's interesting as you were speaking, like some of what you were describing reminded me a little bit of like family constellations work where someone steps in and they start to feel things they can't, that's not theirs,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
fascinating. I think um and really it's just a testament to how we're all connected.
yeah,
There is no separation. The fact that you can feel into somebody that's not even physically in your presence, you don't even know their
yeah.
story or who they are, but
Mhm.
you can feel what's there. It's so powerful.
Yeah. And that's the root of the gift is that
Yeah.
oneness, that we're all connected. Nobody's separate. We're all one big field of energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, how can people work with you? I mean, obviously you have your link tree. What are some of your offerings?
Yeah. So I do personal one-on-one coaching, which is basically spiritual insight,
Mhm.
uh, mindset, manifestation, all these things. I also do the psychography, the readings in that regard. Um, I've done NLP, hypnosis, and things as well. So it's kind of like just a bunch. It really depends on what people need or in need of, and then I can step in and offer that. I've been fortunate enough to really sort of specialize in many different areas, but ultimately,
Mhm.
you know, people come to me just wanting to live happier lives,
Yeah.
and so intuitively, I can figure out what modality best serves that need, and we just kind of go from there.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's awesome. Shaun, thank you so much. Is there any message you'd like to leave with the audience?
Ooh.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hot seat.
Yeah.
Uh, there is a set of that. We spoke about it earlier. I think I mentioned it earlier. And the first thing is actually I mentioned both of these earlier, so I'm going to say two things. First thing is this: your greatest gift back to God, the divine, the goddess, all that is, whatever you feel most comfortable with. The greatest gift is you being 100% sincere, genuinely authentic to yourself. That's the greatest gift. God made no mistakes when it created us exactly as we are, and everything that feels natural, everything that feels native, everything that feels exactly like you is what you're supposed to be feeling, no matter what anybody else says, no matter what anybody else tries to tell you. Your greatest gift is you being your most authentic self. Okay. And the second thing, and I feel like this is just as important, and it took me a long time to know this: you are infinitely worthy because you exist. Only because you exist, not because of what you do, not because of what you want, not because of who you're in a relationship with or not in a relationship with, not because of where you live, your car, any of that other stuff. You are worthy because you are a soul that exists as a human being right now. And you can say that you are infinitely worthy. And that, I promise you, when you really get it and you get it intuitively, inherently, it'll bring so much joy because there's no more pressure. It's all fun. It's all a playground at that point, right?
Man, that is so powerful. I hope all of you that are watching or listening that you just like literally just hit rewind and just like listen to that every day. And
I'll
you,
say it again.
right? Like seriously, that is just so all-encompassing and so powerful. Shaun, thank you so much. This truly has been a blessing. And yeah, thank you for
Thank
being
you
here.
for me as well. Thank you for sharing your platform and thank you for being so kind and sharing your insights and your story as well.
Yeah, thank you. All right, everybody, until next time, uh, be well.